Have you ever looked at something and realized you're not really seeing it? Maybe it's the face of someone you love, but your mind is clouded. Or a future you hoped for, but now it's just fog. Maybe you're walking, breathing, living, but everything looks like shadows moving in the distance. That's what it's like when life blows on you. You still go on. You still smile. But deep down, you're guessing, squinting through hope, waiting for clarity that never quite comes. And if you've ever been in that place between faith and fear, vision and fog, this story might just speak to your soul. So take a moment, breathe in, and if these kinds of quiet, healing stories help steady you, go ahead and like the video and subscribe. It means more than you know. Jesus was on the move again. He had just crossed back over from the Gentile side of the Sea of Galilee. The disciples were still rattled, whispering about bread and the mysterious way Jesus fed thousands with next to nothing. But Jesus had something else on his mind. They came to a small town, Bethsaida, a place not unfamiliar with miracles. This was the region where Jesus had fed the 5,000. People had heard of him. They knew what he could do. And this time, they brought him a man who was blind. They begged Jesus to touch him. Just a touch. Not a sermon. Not a spectacle. Just a hand. They believed his hands could do what no medicine could. Jesus took the man by the hand and led him out of the village. Not just away from the crowd, but out of town altogether. Why? Because sometimes healing requires separation. Not because Jesus couldn't heal him in front of everyone, but because this healing wasn't just for sight, it was for something deeper. The blind man felt fingers guide him, rough earth under his feet, the air cooler the farther they walked from town. And then Jesus did something strange. He spat on the man's eyes. He laid his hands on them, and then he asked a question, "Do you see anything?" The man looked up and said, "I see people. They look like trees, walking around." Pause. What? Was that a partial healing? Was something wrong? Jesus, the same one who healed with a word, with a thought, had not restored full sight on the first try. This miracle wasn't broken. It was intentional. Jesus was doing something no one expected, healing in stages. He wasn't testing his own power. He was slowing the moment down for the sake of the man, for the sake of those watching, for us. Because sometimes we live in that middle place where the fog is lifting, but the view is still blurry. We see just enough to walk forward, but not enough to run. This is the only recorded miracle of Jesus where healing happened into parts. Every other time instant, immediate. But here, blurred, then clear. Why? Maybe because this miracle mirrors the journey of faith itself. Faith rarely comes in full focus all at once. Sometimes it's trees walking. Sometimes it's half-truths, half-vision, half-healed hearts on their way to wholeness. So Jesus placed his hands on the man's eyes again. This time sight broke through. He could see clearly, distinctly. No more shadows, no more guessing. And Jesus sent him home, saying, "Don't even go into the village." As if to say, this miracle isn't for headlines. It's for healing, not for applause but for restoration. And maybe that's where you are, half-healed, half-seeing, half-trusting, and yet completely loved. Stay with this story. There's more to come. Now imagine this. You've spent years in darkness. Then suddenly light floods in. Everything's visible, but everything is strange. That was the man from Bethsaida. One moment, he was bumping into walls. The next, the world bloomed before him, but it didn't come gently. It came fast, overwhelming, loud. We don't talk about this part of healing much. We celebrate the miracle, the sight, the breakthrough. But what happens when healing hurts? What happens when the clarity you longed for costs you something? For the man who once saw people like trees walking, the second touch gave him precision. He could finally see people for who they were, but that also meant he could see the things he had missed. The wear on his own hands, the tears in someone's eyes, the things that had changed while he couldn't see. Sometimes the miracle is not the moment of sight, but learning to live with what you now see. Healing doesn't just give you clarity, it gives you responsibility. You can't unknow what you've come to see. You can't unfeel what has been revealed. The man may have gone home quietly, but he went home changed. And here's something even deeper. Jesus didn't leave him in the middle. He didn't say, "That's good enough." He didn't tell the man, "Just be thankful you're better than before." No, Jesus pressed in again. He saw the blur and said, "Let's go further." That's love. The kind of love that doesn't settle for partial healing. The kind of Savior who doesn't stop at 70%. Jesus wants your full healing, even when it's messy, even when the second touch is harder than the first. There's something holy about Jesus asking, "Do you see anything?" It invites honesty. No pretending, no forced faith, just truth. I see people like trees. That kind of honesty doesn't repel Jesus. It draws him closer. So here's the question he might ask you today. Do you see anything? Do you see what I'm doing in your life? Do you trust me enough to admit what still feels blurry? Because sometimes the second touch comes after confession. After you've said, "Lord, I believe but help my unbelief." And he will, not with shame, but with open hands. And another touch. You would think this story ends with a parade. The man sees again. Shouldn't there be celebration? A crowd cheering. Jesus smiling as the healed man runs back into Bethsaida, shouting joy. But no, Jesus didn't let him go back into the village. "Don't even enter the town," he said. Strange, right? This was the place of his healing, the place where his life just changed. And yet, Jesus said, "Don't return there." Why? Because not every miracle is meant for public stage. Some are sacred, quiet, deep. Bethsaida was a place full of witnesses, but very little faith. In fact, later, Jesus would pronounce judgment on it. "Woe to you, Bethsaida! For if the miracles that were performed in you had been performed in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago." Matthew 11:21. Bethsaida saw more miracles than most towns, and yet stayed unchanged. Sometimes the loudest places are the most spiritually deaf. Sometimes the most familiar places are the most resistant to transformation. So Jesus told the man to go home but skip the old village. Take your new sight and build a new path. The man didn't need applause. He didn't need validation. He had vision. He had healing. And sometimes that's enough. There's a reason this miracle is tucked quietly in the Gospel of Mark. It doesn't draw attention like Lazarus being raised or the leper being cleansed. But it speaks with a tenderness that pierces, because many of us are in that space. Not blind, but not fully clear. Not shouting, but still healing. This story whispers, Jesus sees your blur. Jesus is not finished with you. Jesus touches twice. Once to begin, once to complete. He doesn't rush your healing. He walks it with you. And when you finally see, not just light, but truth, he says, go forward. Not back. Not into the old village, but into the new life that clarity demands. So maybe you're standing outside your own Bethsaida. You've seen just enough to know things can't go back to the way they were. You've been touched once and you're waiting for the second. Or maybe you've been healed and now you're wondering, what do I do now? Here's the answer. Walk forward. Quietly, boldly, clearly. You don't need the crowd's praise. You don't need the village's approval. You have seen, and that's enough. Let it shape how you love, how you listen, how you carry others through their blur. Soft closing. Now let this story settle in you. Close your eyes for a moment. Not to shut the world out, but to take it in differently. Maybe you'll hear your own breath. Maybe you'll remember a time when life felt like trees walking. Maybe you'll feel a second touch waiting. Let that be your peace tonight. You're not half healed. You're on your way. And Jesus is still near, still whispering, still walking you home.